The corridors of the Velaris Academy pulsed with sterile light, each panel humming with a faint mechanical heartbeat. Cadet Evelyn Drake walked silently through the hall, her boots echoing against metallic floors designed for feet heavier and claws sharper than hers. Every few steps, alien cadets paused to watch her, their gazes a mix of curiosity and disdain. "Human," one hissed in their guttural tongue, just loud enough. Soft bones. Slow reflexes, she didn't respond. She'd learned that silence cut deeper than any retort. When she entered the training chamber, the air shifted. The domed hall was enormous, its ceiling alive with holographic constellations. Alien cadets of every species stood in ranks, skin scales glinting, mandibles twitching. In the center stood Commander Thal'kor Vesh, tall and obsidian-skinned, his eyes faintly bioluminescent. He held authority like gravity itself. "Cadet Drake!" he called, voice amplified by the room's acoustics. "Step forward." She obeyed, standing before him, smaller, human, calm. Thal'kor's lip curled. "I have been asked by the Council to evaluate your species' reaction capabilities. Your people claim adaptability," he turned to the crowd. "We shall test that claim." The audience rumbled with amusement. Evelyn remained still. Her heartbeat steady, Thal'kor stepped closer. "Tell me, human, what do you rely on when the universe turns hostile? Strength? Technology? Pity?" Her gaze didn't waver. "Observation." Murmurs rippled through the cadets. Laughter. Mockery. He smiled thinly. "Then observe," he gestured. The chamber's center shimmered, transforming into a simulation ring. Combat drones flickered to life, 6 of them, each equipped with pulse weapons calibrated to stun. Thal'kor's voice thundered, "Reflex trial initiate!" Evelyn stepped into the ring. The hum of energy surrounded her. The first drone fired. A beam of light streaked past her cheek. She moved, not fast, but precisely, her head tilting an inch at the right moment. Another fired. She sidestepped, barely a whisper of motion. The aliens laughed until they realized she wasn't missing by chance. She was tracking rhythm. Each drone had a firing interval. Each shot, a pattern. Thal'kor narrowed his eyes. Increased speed. The drones complied. She dropped low, slid under a beam, twisted on her palm, and rose with fluid precision. "Still no aggression, only evasion. You're dancing," one cadet sneered. Evelyn exhaled. "I'm surviving." The next barrage came faster. Her breath synced with the rhythm of the beams. Inhale, exhale, step. The floor vibrated with energy. Every shot missed her by a hair's breadth. Thal'kor raised a hand. "Stop!" The room fell silent, save for the faint whine of cooling circuits. He stepped into the ring, towering over her. Impressive reflexes. But reflex without power is meaningless. He drew his personal blade, a curved obsidian weapon that hummed with restrained energy. "Defend yourself." "I wasn't told this was armed combat." "Adapt," he replied, and swung. She moved instinctively. Backstep, pivot, duck. The blade sliced air where her neck had been. Thal'kor's grin widened. "So fragile," he said, striking again. She dodged every strike, conserving motion, studying him, shoulders, eyes, hips, the small twitches before he attacked. The aliens cheered, not for her, but for the spectacle. Then, a faint smile touched her lips. He lunged. She sidestepped, caught his wrist mid-swing, twisted. A precise motion learned from human close-quarters drills, and pressed his own blade an inch from his throat before releasing it. The crowd went dead silent. Thal'kor froze, eyes wide for the briefest second. Then laughter erupted. He stepped back, composed, voice low. "Interesting. You learn fast." "It's what we do," she said quietly. He circled her, studying her as one might a dangerous insect. "But do you know why your species will never command the stars, human?" She said nothing. "You hesitate," he hissed. "You think before you strike. You feel before you act. It makes you predictable." Evelyn looked up. "It makes us precise." The commander's jaw tightened. He waved his hand. The drones reactivated, circling again. "Continue the trial. Let's see how long your precision lasts." 6 drones fired simultaneously. Evelyn closed her eyes for half a heartbeat, then moved. She didn't run. She flowed. Shots passed through where she had been, never where she was. The rhythm broke, and she adapted instantly, her body a blur of trained instinct and human intuition. The audience grew quiet. Even the mocking cadets stared now, their laughter gone. One drone dove too close. She caught its sensor with her palm and redirected it into another. They crashed mid-air, sparks raining down. Thal'kor shouted, "Cease fire!" The silence that followed was absolute. She stood in the center, chest rising slowly, hair clinging to her forehead. Every eye was on her. Thal'kor approached again, blade deactivated, expression unreadable. "You endured," he said softly. "But you didn't attack." "Endurance," she said, "isn't weakness." He leaned closer, his voice a low growl. "No, Cadet Drake, it's just another word for delay before defeat." He turned to the assembled cadets. "Dismissed." As the aliens filed out, their gazes lingered longer than before. Some with disdain, others with a glimmer of respect they didn't understand. Evelyn waited until the room emptied, then finally spoke, softly to herself. "Endurance," she murmured, "is just patience with teeth." She walked toward the exit, the hum of the failing lights following her like a whisper. Somewhere deep inside, a thought surfaced, quiet and cold. "They still think we're fragile." She reached the door and paused. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the metallic surface, a human among predators, unarmored, unyielding. Outside, the alien sky burned violet above the academy spires. Evelyn looked up at it, calm and unreadable. Tomorrow, they'd test her again. They always did, and she would wait, watch, adapt. Not to prove humanity's strength, but to remind them that restraint was not submission. It was calculation. Back in the chamber, Commander Thal'kor stood alone, replaying the simulation in silence. His eyes tracked her movements on the holographic feed, precise, efficient, human. He frowned, replaying the same frame where she caught his wrist. The motion had been too fluid, too exact. He whispered to himself, "They shouldn't move like that." But she had. And she hadn't struck him, even when she could. That unsettled him more than the defeat itself. Outside, in her dorm, Evelyn sat by the window, hands steady as she disassembled her training device. The academy lights flickered again, just once. She looked up, her reflection mirrored in the dark glass. A small, cold smile curved her lips. "They don't know yet," she thought. "They think they're teaching us." She powered off the device, the room sinking into quiet shadow. Beyond the window, the stars shimmered, distant, patient, watching. Humanity had been underestimated before. It always ended the same way, and when the lights died, no one ever saw it coming. The academy was never quiet. Even at night, machinery whispered through walls, drones drifted through corridors, and the hum of alien engines sang a low metallic lullaby. But to Evelyn, silence wasn't the absence of noise. It was control. She sat alone in the observation wing long after the others had gone. The simulation screens reflected in her eyes as she studied the combat footage. Frame by frame, she replayed her trial. Not for victory, but for data. Every flick of a drone, every flicker of Thal'kor's gaze, every interval of breath. The Academy's AI logged her analysis pattern as obsessive. She ignored the notice. Humans had always been called obsessive, right before they outperformed their creators. The door slid open behind her. She didn't look back. "You're still here," said a voice. Cold, metallic, unmistakable. Commander Thal'kor's reflection appeared beside hers on the screen. "Most cadets celebrate survival." "I'm not most cadets," she said. He watched her fingers move across the console, precise, steady. "You study as if the outcome could change. It can. Every outcome can." He tilted his head. "You think you can outlearn instinct?" "I think instinct is just practiced observation." Thal'kor studied her in silence, expression unreadable. Then he left without a word. The door sealed shut, leaving her alone again. She exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on the frozen frame where her hand had caught his wrist. The alien crowd behind him looked shocked, not by her speed, but by her restraint. They expected fury. She'd given them calculation. That was what unnerved them. By morning, word had spread. Cadets avoided her in the mess hall, whispering as she passed. The academy didn't tolerate weakness, but it feared unpredictability more. During weapons drills, she noticed their glances, not of contempt anymore, but caution. The instructor, a scaled reptilian with a voice like sand, barked commands as they loaded pulse rifles. Targets appear for 1 second. Hit or be hit. The line of cadets fired in rhythm. Evelyn didn't. She waited. When the target flashed, she shot once, dead center. The instructor frowned. You're slow, human. She lowered her rifle. Efficient. The alien's nostrils flared, but he said nothing. After class, an insectoid cadet cornered her near the grav elevator. You embarrassed our commander, it hissed. You think we fear you? Evelyn looked up at its compound eyes. Not yet. It struck, fast. She sidestepped, caught its limb, twisted. Not enough to break, just enough to drop it to its knees. The hiss of pain echoed off the walls. Humans don't start fights, she said quietly. We end them. When she released it, the creature didn't rise. It just stared, confused, not by pain, but by how she'd stopped short of harm. Mercy was an alien language here. That night, her quarters were inspected. She knew it before they arrived. The faint static distortion of nearby surveillance drones. Thal'kor was watching. She let them search. Her room was bare. A cot, a datapad, a dismantled training sensor. Nothing to hide, nothing to fear. When they left, she whispered to the empty room, Still testing, Commander? The Academy's power grid flickered again, 3rd time this week. She noticed patterns even there. The dips aligned with the tactical training simulations. Power rerouted deliberately. Someone was altering the schedule. She smiled faintly. You're provoking me. The next day, she was summoned. The central hall gleamed with alien precision, polished stone, banners from 100 species. Thal'kor stood on the raised platform, surrounded by instructors. Cadet Drake, he said, voice formal, you will undergo a secondary reflex trial. This time, 0 gravity. A murmur rippled through the audience. 0G trials were reserved for advanced cadets. Evelyn's tone was even. When? Now. The chamber sealed around her. Gravity shifted, dissolved. She floated mid-air as luminous drones activated around her, circling like predators. Thal'kor's voice echoed from the intercom. You may use weapons if you wish. I don't need them, she replied. The drones moved first. In 0G, motion was betrayal. Even breath changed trajectory. Evelyn twisted through space, her movements small, deliberate, efficient. The drone's sensors lost tracking for fractions of seconds, enough for her to glide between bursts. Fascinating, murmured Thal'kor to the observing officers. She calculates movement through minimal impulse, not instinct, prediction. Inside, Evelyn was calm. Her heartbeat synchronized with the drone's charge cycles. Every pulse of light gave her a map of angles. Every flicker of energy, a rhythm. She used her own reflection on the metallic wall to anticipate approach vectors. When a drone fired from behind, she rotated without propulsion, a micro-turn of the wrist, body folding like origami. The beam grazing past. Commander, said one alien beside Thal'kor, she's not fighting. She's adapting faster than the system updates. Thal'kor's eyes narrowed. Impossible. The simulation adjusts every millisecond. Then she's reading it differently, the officer said. Below, Evelyn drifted silently among the chaos, her focus absolute. She wasn't thinking in moments anymore. She was thinking between them, the silence between heartbeats, where reaction and intention merged, the drone's escalated fire rate. The room filled with streaks of plasma. She bent backward through the void, spinning, catching a drone mid-turn and slamming it into another. Both exploded in light. For a moment, everything stopped. Then, her voice cut through the smoke. Steady, low, human. I adapt faster in the dark. Thal'kor froze. The remaining drones powered down automatically. The simulation ended itself. Something it had never done before. When the lights returned, Evelyn stood balanced on the magnetic floor as if gravity had never vanished. The commander descended the platform. His expression unreadable, his tone colder than before. "That phrase, what did you mean?" Evelyn looked up. "It means I don't need light to learn. You manipulate systems. I understand patterns." Thal'kor's eyes glowed faintly. "You misunderstand your place here. You're a guest in this academy, not a threat." She met his gaze without fear. "That depends who's watching." He turned sharply, cloak sweeping behind him. "Return to quarters. You'll be evaluated further." As she left, one of the instructors whispered to him, "Sir, she shouldn't be that precise. Humans lack neural augmentation." Thal'kor's response was quiet. "Unless she doesn't." Later that night, Evelyn sat in darkness, dismantling a damaged training sensor. Inside its casing, she found a micro-tracking chip, alien frequency active. She crushed it between her fingers. Outside her window, thunder rolled across the alien sky. The twin suns were fading into eclipse. She watched the dim light bleed into shadow and felt something shift inside her. Not fear, but anticipation. They were watching her, testing her, pushing her to react. But humans didn't react. They adapted, quietly, invisibly, until the balance of power tilted without anyone noticing. Her reflection in the glass looked calm, almost detached. "They still think control means dominance," she murmured. "They've never seen control used as a weapon." She powered down the lights. The academy slept. The stars burned above in silent alignment. Evelyn Drake closed her eyes and listened to the hum beneath the silence. The rhythm of machines, the pulse of the academy itself. She could almost hear it breathing. The next test was coming. She didn't need to prepare. She already knew how it would end. The morning began with silence. No drills, no alarms, no announcements through the metallic corridors. The academy's hum, that constant background pulse of machines, had gone still. Evelyn noticed it the moment she woke. It wasn't peace. It was a held breath. She dressed in silence, fastening her cadet uniform with steady hands. Outside her window, the twin suns were veiled by clouds, a rare storm over Valaris. Lightning rolled through the sky like cracks in glass. When she stepped into the hallway, two armed sentinels stood waiting. "Cadet Drake," one announced. "Commander Thal'kor summons you, now." Evelyn followed without question. The corridors were dimmer than usual. Lights flickered as if the academy itself hesitated to witness what came next. The sentinels stopped at the central chamber, vast, circular, with the academy's crest projected across the domed ceiling. The air smelled faintly of ozone and tension. A ring of officers and cadets surrounded the command floor. Thal'kor stood at the center, his obsidian skin glistening beneath artificial light. "Human," he began, voice echoing across the hall. "Your display yesterday exceeded parameters. You've broken protocol, reprogrammed academy systems, and damaged simulation units worth more than your planet's GDP." Evelyn said nothing. He stepped forward. "We will determine whether your adaptability is brilliance or breach." The chamber floor reconfigured beneath her. The tiles split apart, revealing a circular platform lined with emitters. Above, the lights dimmed to crimson. Thal'kor's tone hardened. "This is not a trial. It is judgment, the command floor sealed." Drones emerged from hidden panels, more advanced than before, silent, angular, almost predatory. Their eyes burned blue. "Begin," Thal'kor ordered. Evelyn exhaled. The first drone moved, faster than anything she'd faced. She twisted aside, barely avoiding a pulse of plasma that melted steel where she'd stood. Another came from above, another from behind. She ducked, pivoted, let her momentum carry her forward. The air itself trembled with energy. Alien officers watched in silence. The spectacle wasn't a test anymore. It was punishment disguised as analysis. Thal'kor called out, "Fight back!" She didn't. She calculated. Every drone operated with precise synchronization, identical timing, perfect formation. But as she moved, she noticed it. A half-second lag between commands. A central node was processing everything. One core controlled all. Her eyes flicked upward, to the observation tower where the command AI pulsed faintly behind reinforced glass. She spoke without looking up. "You're using central relay control," Thal'kor frowned. "You think naming it gives you power?" "No," she said. "Understanding does?" Then the lights went out. The blackout was total. No emergency glow, no hum, no guidance beams. The cadets gasped. Someone cursed in alien tongue. The sound of moving metal echoed through the dark, followed by the sharp click of a weapon charging. Thal'kor barked, "Backup power now!" Nothing answered. Evelyn's voice broke through the blackness, calm, steady. "You shouldn't have connected all systems through one grid." A blue spark flared, a drone's energy cell overloading. Then another. The air filled with crackling light and static whispers. Thal'kor turned toward her voice. "What have you done?" "I didn't do this," she said. "You did. You made the system predictable." Footsteps echoed across the chamber. Soft, measured, human. "You wanted to measure human adaptability," Evelyn said, her tone a quiet thread in the dark. "You forgot that adaptability isn't reaction, it's preparation." The drones fired blindly into the shadows. She moved unseen, the blast tracing outlines where she'd been a second before. The faint light of energy fire revealed glimpses, her silhouette sliding through the chaos, deliberate, unhurried. Thal'kor shouted, "Illuminate the chamber!" No response. Then silence again, deep, suffocating silence. The kind that made hearts race even before danger arrived. "Commander," came a trembling voice from one of his officers. "The human, she's—" A crash cut him off. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The emergency systems finally blinked on, painting the scene in flickering orange light. Evelyn stood in the center of the wreckage, calm, unarmed, surrounded by the remains of disabled drones. Her uniform was torn, her expression unreadable. The officers stepped back. Thal'kor stared at her, disbelief and something else, unease. "You sabotaged the power grid," he said. "No," she replied. "I learned how it fails." He approached, slow and deliberate. "What are you trying to prove?" Evelyn met his gaze. "That control without understanding is just noise," he snarled. "You think you frightened us? You think darkness gives you power?" "Darkness doesn't change anything," she said softly. "It just shows who can see without light." Their eyes locked. Around them, cadets stood frozen, caught between fear and awe. Thal'kor lunged. For a heartbeat, the room blurred. Evelyn stepped aside, seized his wrist, and pressed his own blade against his throat, the same motion as before, but this time deliberate, absolute. No one moved. Even the hum of reactivated machinery seemed hesitant. She leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "You were right, Commander. We hesitate before we strike. That's why we never miss." She released him and stepped back. Thal'kor remained motionless, eyes wide with something foreign to his kind. Recognition. Evelyn turned to the crowd. "You see hesitation as weakness, but restraint is a weapon. It lets you choose when to end a fight instead of starting one you can't finish." The chamber stayed silent. She looked around, at beings bred for war, command, and dominance, all staring at a single unarmed human who had turned their own systems against them without lifting a weapon. The emergency lights flickered again. Shadows moved across her face as she walked toward the exit. Behind her, Thal'kor's voice rose, quieter now, almost subdued. "Drake." She stopped but didn't turn. "What are you?" he asked. Her answer was calm. "Human." The word echoed across the hall, louder than a battle cry. She walked through the doorway and disappeared into the dim corridor. No one followed. For a long moment, Thal'kor stood staring at the ruined drones and the faint scorch marks on the floor. The silence pressed against him. Something in it felt alive. An officer approached cautiously. "Commander, should we restrain her?" Thal'kor shook his head. "Restraint is meaningless when the mind is free." He looked toward the ceiling, where the Academy's crest flickered weakly, the symbol of order trembling under its own weight. Outside, lightning split the sky open. Rain fell hard against the Academy's metal spires. Evelyn walked across the platform alone, water dripping down her sleeves. She paused at the edge, staring into the storm. The vast expanse of alien stars hidden behind clouds. She wasn't smiling, but her eyes carried something deeper, understanding. The galaxy had spent centuries defining humans by fragility, by limits, by fear. But they'd never watched a human stand in darkness and stay perfectly still until everyone else broke first. She looked toward the horizon. Whispering words meant only for herself. They'll learn eventually. We don't conquer. We endure until everything else exhausts itself. Thunder rolled again, echoing like distant applause. The lights of the academy flickered once more, then steadied. Order restored itself. But for everyone inside, the silence had changed. It carried a new shape, a human one. And somewhere deep within the Academy's systems, an archived file labeled Human Reflex Trial updated itself automatically. The final line of data read, Conclusion, Unknown Anomaly, Subject Classification, Dangerous through Patience. Evelyn turned and walked back into the shadows, her steps measured, her gaze unwavering. The lights followed her for a moment, then dimmed, as if even the machines had learned respect. And when she vanished into the corridor, the Academy remembered the moment the lights died, and humanity stopped pretending to be fragile. The Academy was quieter than anyone could remember. The day after the blackout, even the ventilation hummed more cautiously, as if the building itself feared drawing Evelyn Drake's attention. Word of what she'd done, of what she hadn't done, spread like static across the interstellar network. Cadets whispered when she passed. Instructors lowered their voices. Even the bravest species avoided her gaze. The one who'd humiliated the commander without firing a shot had become a shadow the Academy couldn't explain away. Evelyn walked through that silence without pride or satisfaction. She hadn't come to terrify them. She'd come to learn. Yet every step she took made the walls feel smaller, as if the place that once judged her now measured itself against her presence. At the command tower, Thal'kor stood before a projection of her combat record. The hologram repeated fragments of her movements, each efficient, exact, calculated to the millisecond. She shouldn't be able to predict drone algorithms, said one officer. She didn't predict them, Thal'kor murmured. She anticipated the command delay before the system processed it. That's not possible, another argued. Even our own species can't, Thal'kor cut him off. That's why you lost to her before she moved. He dismissed the room. Alone, he watched the projection again. Every frame reminded him of a question he couldn't bury. What drives a species that survives everything it shouldn't? He had to know. Hours later, Evelyn stood at the observation deck overlooking the Academy courtyard. Storm clouds rolled across the alien sky, thick with violet lightning. She'd been there since dawn, unmoving, eyes distant. When Thal'kor entered, she didn't turn. You've been standing here for hours, he said. I was waiting, she replied. For what? For you to stop wondering. He paused beside her. You think I'm predictable? I think curiosity is the one thing we share. Thal'kor's mandibles flexed, a silent expression of conflict. You embarrass my academy, and yet I find myself respecting you. That's not a comfortable feeling. Discomfort is the start of growth, she said softly. He studied her profile, calm, unreadable, human. Tell me, cadet, when you stood in the dark, surrounded by enemies, what did you feel? Evelyn's voice was even. Focus, nothing else. Fear doesn't vanish. You just learn to use it as structure. Thal'kor's brow furrowed. You mean you controlled it? No, she said. I accepted it. Control is fragile. Acceptance endures. He turned away, unsettled by how easily she spoke truths his people had spent centuries denying. Your species masks violence under philosophy. Maybe, she said, finally facing him. Or maybe we understand that survival isn't about strength. It's about timing. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating both faces in stark contrast, his carved from pride and lineage, hers from quiet defiance. Thal'kor spoke again, lower now. The council wants you dismissed. They say your methods compromise order. And you? I told them order was already compromised. Her eyes met his. You're afraid of what happens when others start thinking like me. He didn't deny it. That night, an announcement swept through the academy. The human cadet would represent Valaris in the upcoming Inter-System Combat Symposium, a showcase where elite academies displayed their tactical superiority. No one volunteered to challenge her. In the days that followed, Evelyn trained alone. Her sessions were silent choreography, movements so minimal they seemed effortless, but each one tuned to the rhythm of machines. Observers noted that even the drones adapted slower around her, as if her presence distorted their precision. During one such session, a younger alien cadet approached hesitantly. "Human," he said, voice trembling. "Why didn't you destroy the commander when you could?" Evelyn didn't stop her motion, because breaking someone is easy. Teaching them they can't break you is harder, the cadet blinked, unsure if it was wisdom or warning. When the day of the symposium arrived, the academy gathered in the grand amphitheater, a vast ring open to the storming sky. Spectators from allied worlds filled the viewing platforms. Banners of hundreds of species rippled in the wind. Evelyn stepped into the arena alone. Across from her stood an armored alien from the Zor Dominion, twice her size, bred for combat, its skin like molten glass. Thal'kor watched from above, his expression unreadable. The referee signaled. The duel began. The Zor lunged instantly, its blade singing through the air. Evelyn didn't retreat. She sidestepped, body twisting just beyond reach. The next strike came heavier, crushing power aimed to end it fast. She dropped low, palm grazing the ground, pivoted, and rose behind it. The blade missed again. The alien roared. "Fight me!" Evelyn's reply was calm. "You're already fighting yourself." She waited, watched, measured. The Zor's breathing grew uneven. Its strikes faster but less precise. Every miss built frustration. Every miss fed her rhythm. Finally, when it overextended, she moved. One step, one motion. Her hand struck the weak point behind its neck armor, disrupting the neural link controlling the suit. The alien froze mid-swing. Gasps filled the amphitheater. Evelyn stepped back. "Yield!" The Zor hesitated, then dropped its weapon. The arena erupted, not with cheers, but stunned silence. From the stands, Thal'kor whispered to himself. Restraint again. When she left the arena, no one blocked her path. The cadets who once mocked her now moved aside instinctively, not out of fear, but recognition. Later, in the quiet of the observation tower, Thal'kor awaited her. "You changed something today," he said. "I didn't change anything," she replied. "I reminded you what you forgot," he frowned. "And what's that?" "That survival isn't dominance. It's adaptation with purpose." Thal'kor nodded slowly. "You speak as though you already lead." "I don't lead," she said. "I adapt until leadership becomes unnecessary." He turned toward the window, watching the storm clear. "If the council sees this footage, they'll see you as a threat." "I'm not their threat," Evelyn said quietly. "I'm their reflection." For the first time, Thal'kor smiled, not mockery but understanding. Perhaps humanity belongs here after all. Evelyn looked out over the horizon where twin suns began to rise, their light breaking through receding clouds. "We don't belong anywhere," she said. "That's why we survive everywhere." As dawn spread across the alien world, the Academy's systems rebooted fully for the first time since the blackout. Every monitor flickered to life, displaying a single line of automated text across the network. System diagnostic complete. Human protocol integrated. Thal'kor turned to her. "What did you do?" Evelyn's eyes reflected the sunlight. "I didn't do anything. You taught your system to learn from its mistakes. It just finally did." He stared at her, realization dawning. The blackout, the trials, even the silence. It had all been a lesson, not just for her, but for them. As she walked toward the exit, the commander called out, "Drake!" She paused. He spoke softly. "If humanity's weapon is restraint, what happens when you choose not to use it?" Evelyn smiled faintly. "Then the lights don't come back on." She left him there. standing in the sunlight that felt a little less certain than before, and somewhere deep beneath the academy, the AI's new subroutine continued to run, silent, unseen, rewriting the protocols of every system it touched. Its title, Human Adaptation Model 1.0, the academy would never be the same.